Much of what is divisive about CRT is that it's hard for people to hear the words, quote, white supremacy, unquote, without feeling defensive, even though that is the academically correct way to talk about most of American history. They hate America there in the Air Force Academy. I mean, I don't know how else. I don't like to say that about folks who have probably been there many, many years, but this is what they're training. This is beyond disturbing. We had this tremendous decision last week out of the Supreme Court that reminded us in this Harvard admissions case, University of North Carolina admissions cases where they overruled or outlawed, finally, the use of race to figure out who should be admitted to colleges and universities. And in doing so, they reminded Americans that the Constitution is supposed to be colorblind. And there was some interesting language in there in the decision that, well, maybe the military academies and the military can still discriminate on race if they want. And they didn't really address that directly. Well, I don't believe the military academies or anyone else in the government can discriminate on race in selecting people for membership. I guess maybe sometimes you might need someone of a particular race to conduct a particular mission, so I guess that's probably what the court was thinking about. But in terms of the military academies and such, that to me is just a pernicious issue that should be excised from decision making in selecting those who join our academies, making choices based in part on race. So that's one issue. But there's this other big issue, I think, that as the Constitution being a colorblind document, it really, in my view, prevents and further highlights why this racist, racialist, Marxist, communist, anti-American critical race theory should be eliminated from our U.S. military academies. We are in crisis right now, our military is, because under the guise of diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is code for racialism, racism, Marxism, anti-Americanism, they are segregating, targeting people based on race, and are obviously attacking the American way. And Judicial Watch has been in the lead in exposing what's been going on at West Point, the Navy Academy in Annapolis, and the Air Force Academy. We have several pieces of litigation and FOIAs to expose how this Biden administration has made critical race theory a guiding force in training, a guiding principle in training our military. And as a result, our rising leadership is being trained in this racialism, our rising leadership in the military. I mean, this is the next generation of military leaders, right? These are the rising officers, at least at the at the college level. And they're being trained to hate America. They are trying to alienate our nation's military from the America that they're trying, that they're presumably wanting to defend. And you know, most of those guys and gals who are in these academies, they want to do what you think they would want to do, joining the military, which is, defend the United States from all enemies, foreign and domestic. But their leadership isn't interested in that anymore. They're interested in using the military as part of a cutting-edge revolutionary cadre to change America from a republic, in my view, to a racialist, socialist, Marxist state, if I could be blunt. And I see evidence of this in training materials we were able to obtain thanks to a Judicial Watch lawsuit. So none of this stuff is given to us voluntarily. This is all as a result of a lawsuit after they refused to turn over the information about the information in response to a request for Air Force Academy training materials on critical race theory. We filed the lawsuit in November of last year, and we got a batch of documents, about 478 pages. I didn't print them out for you. I should have printed them out. From the Air Force Academy, which includes instructional materials and emails that address topics such as critical race theory, white privilege, and of course, Black Lives Matter. The records include, and there's a lot of records, I encourage you to review all 478 pages and ask why $1 in tax dollars is being used to promote this anti-American garbage. But I'm going to highlight some of what we have uncovered here. There's a presentation that includes a headline, part of a lesson, that depicts tables which purport to show how there are correlations between Republican Party identification and old-fashioned racism among white Americans. So immediately you've got the military training their young leaders, and of course there are other, and they're being trained by both civilian and military personnel at the academies as well, how to target one political party as being racist. So it's not only ideological, but it's partisan and an abuse. This is just some other great stuff. Additional slides talk about how white identity shapes politics, and contains tables purporting to show effect of white identity on empathy toward people of color, effect of white identity on support for voter ID laws. So election interference by the military. That's how I interpret this. Effect of white identity on support for political violence. What is going on at the Air Force Academy? A CRT talking points document prepared at the direction of the Air Force Academy superintendent that includes the question, does CRT teach, CRT, critical race theory, teach cadets to hate our country? So they have a scripted answer, which attacks white people. Much of what is divisive about CRT is that it's hard for people to hear the words, quote, white supremacy, unquote, without feeling defensive, even though that is the academically correct way to talk about most of American history. They hate America there in the Air Force Academy. I mean, I don't know how else, I don't like to say that about folks who have probably been there many, many years, but this is what they're training. This is beyond disturbing. And I didn't even, you have to, we've got the, I guess we'll post the release. I'm not even reading every document we put in the release. But you'll see, it is beyond outrageous. I'm going to highlight, I don't know if it's the best of the worst, or the worst of the worst. There's an email exchange between a virtual, hosting of a virtual discussion with this author who I guess wrote a book called Teaching Race, or maybe this is the topic of the discussion, Teaching Race, How to Help Students Unmask and Challenge Racism. At least that title seems, you can imagine what they're going to try to cram into that. But at least the title seems normal. But then you see there's discussions. The white elephant in the room, and white is in parentheticals. So again, attacks on white people. So racism, racialism, and bullets which partially, hold on a second. Oh, and then there's a bullet that allows you to demonstrate how to engage in difficult conversations in a way focused on behaviors, not personhood, and on learned white supremacy, not essential moral differences or failings. Another bullet states it allows you to facilitate racial affinity groups. So in one breath, they're saying, oh, well, all of this is learned behavior. I mean, it can be unlearned. It's not because of your race. You learn to be a white supremacist. And on the other hand, they want to segregate people by race. So when they say allows you to facilitate racial affinity groups, that is segregation by race, by the United States Air Force Academy. Another slide is titled in a racist way, "The Fatigue of WWW, Witnessing White Wokeness. Hard Truths I've Learned as a White Instructor Leader," there's another slide, contains bullets such as, "I must assume that for students and colleagues of color, everything is seen through the lens of race. For them, nothing is race-free." So not only are they attacking whites, they're presuming that minorities and blacks have a particular ideological viewpoint simply because of the color of their skin. So there's racism all around. There's racism for everyone in the Air Force Academy. They abuse whites and blacks and other minorities. And this is what else they demand instructors do. "I must acknowledge my own racist behavior when it's pointed out to me, not try to explain it away, not protest my innocence." So if you're accused by racism, they're telling taxpayer-funded employees at the Air Force Academy, you must confess. Straight out of the Communist Playbook. The show trials, remember Stalin, you had to confess. Doesn't matter what the evidence is, you must confess. Another slide from this Brookfield discussion. "I must never ask people of color," and these are all, there's this weird capitalization. "I must never" is all capitalized. "Ask people of color to teach me about racism. Figuring out what whites should do is my responsibility." I mean, this vicious, nasty, virulent antagonism to someone based on their race. Imagine having to sit through this. "I must never confess my racism so as to seek absolution from BIPOC students and colleagues." Oh, so you can't confess to being a racist by seeking an in with Black, Indigenous, people of color. That's BIPOC, right? I don't even know what, Black, Indigenous, people of color. What's an indigenous? I know what they mean, but of course it makes no sense to a normal person, right? A slide in another class, it looks like, Lesson 28 in Behavioral Science 362 is titled, "What is CRT?" And they explain it. So if you when they tell you, you don't understand what critical race theory is, you stupid conservatives, you stupid white people, which is what the left says. No white people are allowed to talk about critical race theory. And if they do and they criticize it, it means they don't understand it. It's the Marxist way. Recognize that race is not biologically reality, but socially constructed and socially significant. That's Marxist. Helps us understand, is the pigment of your skin a biological reality? I think it is. Now, there are cultural issues that arise from different races, and obviously we had slavery here in the United States. I recognize that. But what they're trying to do is saying that your color is a social, you behave a certain way based on the color of your skin, and it's immutable, your behavior. Unless, of course, you have your consciousness raised by the Marxists. Helps us understand the legacy of racism and how embedded within it is within social institutions. Sees racism as systemic. So that's critical race theory. It sees racism as systemic. And when you say that racism is systemic in the United States of America, you are saying the United States of America needs to be overturned as a country. It is a revolutionary Marxist concept. It attacks the heart of our nation. It attacks our Constitution. It attacks our Declaration. It attacks everything we've done as a country for the last 250 years or so, right? We're coming up on our 250th anniversary. Well, next slide that we highlight talks about the 1619 Project, which is this leftist canard that America was founded on the basis of slavery as opposed to the reality of the American Revolution in 1776. A presentation, we're not sure whether it's for faculty or students, is titled Free Speech in the Military and has a slide labeled The Commie Cadet, obviously promoting the Commie Cadet. You may have seen pictures of him, which includes images of a West Point cadet named Spencer Raponi, I think that's how his name is pronounced, at his West Point graduation ceremony, showing the inside of his cap in which is written, "Communism will win," and one of them wearing a Che Guevara t-shirt under his uniform. Now, Che Guevara was a mass-murdering communist out of Cuba. A presentation, apparently, so they're promoting how this cadet in West Point is promoting communism, okay? A presentation apparently intended for the cadets is titled American Political System and Theory, Lessons 25 through 31, Law and Democracy, and a slide containing a list of information under things to know. Critical race theory studies racism as a social construct, and proponents say learning the history of racism is crucial to addressing inequities. Again, there's another presentation that describes critical race theory as the view. This is something that you should listen to because this is the left telling you what they're up to. The view that the law and legal institutions are inherently racist and that race itself, instead of being biologically grounded and natural, is a socially constructed concept that is used by white people to further their economic and political interests at the expense of people of color. Now, I'm not going to explain it any further because I don't think it survives a rational analysis other than to kind of change the Marxist theory of class conflict and kind of inserting a racial conflict and saying that everyone of a particular race needs to be corrected, to put it mildly, if not eliminated from the political culture in their power politics and their revolutionary analysis. And this is the attack on the American founding. This is a bullet point. Another slide discusses, quote, the myth of American peoplehood, with one bullet claiming the U.S. too has a creation myth. The Declaration of Independence declares that all men have rights endowed by their Creator. Ideas of social contracts forged in a state of nature. They're saying that's a creation myth. It's a myth. Your God-given rights is a myth. That concept is a myth. Air Force Academy. The Air Force is fomenting racialism, racial separatism, and segregation, and anti-white hatred among the rising young leadership at the Air Force Academy. These documents show the Biden Defense Department is teaching these cadets on how to hate America using repackaged revolutionary Marxist propaganda. And this is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the materials that Judicial Watch has uncovered, is uncovering, and will be getting, related to critical race theory and the effort to destroy our military from within by these radical Marxists. And those generals, those civilian leaders at the Pentagon who are responsible for this, they should be drummed out of office, have their positions defunded, if they're up for promotion. I think the top guy in the Air Force, the top general in the Air Force, is up for promotion to retire to replace Milley, the corrupt, treacherous General Milley. Is anyone going to ask the Air Force general about what his academy has been doing to our recruits, to our cadets there? As I said, we've got litigation about what's going on in West Point, at the Naval Academy. We've challenged quota programs in California successfully, racial scholarships in North Carolina. public union contract, a teachers union contract that requires racial discrimination in Minneapolis. But in terms of the threat to the American way, does it get any worse than having our military being turned against America? Does it? I don't think so. And so this is why I'm getting a little bit upset about it, because I think the future of our country is at stake, and we need to stop it. We need to end it. Who knows? Maybe the courts will step in and say you need to stop this racism. It's prohibited. Everyone deserves equal protection under the laws, right? Under the 14th Amendment. And to start attacking and segregating people based on race by government or agencies that, or even entities that get government funding is illegal under the Constitution and federal civil rights laws. It's going to be there's a lot of heavy lifting to be done, and Judicial Watch is already doing it, to defend the Constitution and our Republican system of government from this revolutionary critical race theory concept. And I say critical race theory because it's just one element of the Marxist revolutionary approach to discussing virtually every constitutional and institutional basis for this great country. I mean, you see this with queer theory and radical feminist theory. They're all different flavors of the same revolutionary concept. So they're trying to destroy our military. On the other hand, you have these transgender extremists who are trying to mutilate our children and adults. I mean, attacking biology. I mean, if they're attacking biology, do you think attacking the military is going to be any less of a challenge for them? These revolutionaries brook no opponents and seek to transform every institution. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.